Dear learners, welcome you again in this Swayam MOOC course on environmental politics, theories, concepts and debates, week 8 lecture 5, titled Challenges and Emerging Issues, in which we are going to cover the climate change impacts and adaptation measures in India. Along with that, we will be discussing the industrial pollution and urbanization pressures. Then after, we will be covering the waste management and resource conservation. Along with that, the role of environmental awareness and the behavior change campaigns in implementing the environmental policies more effectively in India. So let's begin, learners. So here we can see that India faces emerging and very important environmental challenges due to the rapid industrialization, urbanization, and the escalating impacts of climate change. And here, these issues threaten ecosystems, public health, and sustainable development too. From rising temperatures and changing weather patterns to increasing waste generation and pollution, the nation must adopt effective governance and policy reforms. So, addressing these concerns, there is requirement of integrated strategies such as the climate adaptation, industrial regulation, sustainable waste management, and natural resource conservation. And in this regard, equally, which is very important, that is to promote environmental awareness and encouraging the behavioral change among the citizens. And together, these efforts from the cornerstone of a resilient, environmentally conscious India capable of navigating current and future ecological threats. And here, some of the important impacts of it includes the rising temperatures and climate change impact. And here we can see that global warming is causing rising temperatures, leading to severe heat waves that impact agriculture, water availability, and public health. And prolonged heat reduces crop yields, dries up the water sources along with the groundwater, and increases heat related illness. Along with that, the extreme weather events, and here climate change intensifies cyclones, floods, and droughts. Even like the Kerala floods of 2018 and cyclone Amphan of 2020 destroys infrastructure, displace communities, and also disrupt the livelihoods. In this regard, if we will see the another very important impact, that is of sea level rise. So here we can see that it is caused by melting glaciers and thermal expansion raise the sea levels, causing coastal erosion and saltwater intrusion. And here, the Sundarbans and Mumbai face land loss, flooding, and threats to freshwater supplies. In this regard, a very significant challenge or a kind of impact which is taking place, that is called the biodiversity loss. And here we can see the warmer temperature force the species to migrate while coral reefs suffer bleaching. And here, if we will take the example, so here, Australia's Great Barrier Reef has lost significant marine life due to the global warming and the warming of oceans. And lastly, that is about the what kind of stress it is creating, climate change is creating on agricultural practices. So here we can see that changing rainfall patterns that become very common now, and droughts in reduce the crop productivity. And here we can see that Punjab, which is India's wheat belt, faces declining yields threatening food security. And here, without urgent climate action, these impacts will worsen, endangering ecosystems, economies, and human survival. So, mitigation and adaptation strategies are very crucial to combat these crises. Now here we will be coming up to the first section's second portion, that is the adaptation measures. And here we can see that just to mitigate these issues, here government have initiated the multi-stakeholder adaptation initiatives, which is combining the role of government, businesses, that is in form of the corporate sector, and the communities 2. So firstly, here we will be discussing the policy interventions, and in the policy interventions, the very important that we have discussed also in the previous lecture, that is the National Action Plan on Climate Change, which promotes solar energy through the solar mission, water conservation through the National Water Mission, and sustainable farming through the National Mission Sustainable Agriculture. Then after we can see second one in it, that is the disaster risk reduction, that is as DRR. And here the India Meteorological Department, IMD, provides early cyclone alerts, which is saving the lives. Here we can take the example of cyclone Fani excavation in Odisha in 2019. Along with that, we can see the flood resistant infrastructure which is being developed in the vulnerable areas like Kerala and other parts of India. Then after we can see the technological solutions, and here under the technological solution, firstly we will be seeing the climate resilient crops, and here the Indian Council of Agricultural Research had developed the drought tolerant Pusa Arhar 16 pulses and flood resistant Swarna sub 1 rice, which are helping farmers in drought prone regions like Rajasthan. And secondly, that is about the renewable energy shift, in which we can see that India is aiming for 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030. And in this regard, we can see the solar parks, specifically like in Bhadla, Rajasthan, and wind farms, that is in Tamil Nadu, which is reducing India's dependence on the coal, that is in form of the fossil fuels. Now here we can see the next one, that is about the community based adaptation, and here we can see that community based adaptation is basically empowering the local communities to combat the climate change by using traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge, and sustainable practices. In this regard, mangrove restoration, as seen in Tamil Nadu after the 2004 tsunami incidents, which acts as a natural defense against storms and coastal erosion. In this regard, water conservation methods like rainwater harvesting and watershed management, exemplified by the Rajasthan Zohats, which help in drought resilience and groundwater recharge. Along with that, we can see in Rajasthan there is for the water conservation there is Mukhyamantri Jal Swavalamban Abhiyan, which is basically focuses on reviving the traditional water bodies. And now lastly, we will be seeing the international cooperation. So in the context of international cooperation, here we can see that on a global scale, India's participation in international frameworks, as we have seen the Paris Agreement, which strengthens its climate action. And here we can see that through the nationally determined contribution, that is as NDCs, India pledges to reduce its emissions and build climate resilience, highlighting the importance of both grassroots actions and international cooperation in environmental governance. Now here we will be seeing the second important aspect of it, that is the judicial and legal role. As we have discussed in the previous lecture very comprehensively, the role of judicial activism and along with the role of judiciary in explaining the environmental concern, and of course how the idea of environmental concern protection is also available. Somewhere it is in direct form and somewhere it is in indirect form in our constitution too. So let's see here. So here we can see that the judiciary in India has played a very significant role in strengthening environmental governance and climate adaptation. And as we have discussed in the previous lectures, that is about the landmark cases like the MC Mehta versus the Union of India, which prompted the introduction of CNG vehicles in Delhi and significantly curbing air pollution. In the same way, the T.N. Godavaraman case led to stricter forest conservation laws and monitoring. And here we can see that these judicial interventions underscore the importance of legal frameworks in environmental protection. And here, while climate mitigation aims to reduce future risk, adaptation helps the societies to endure existing climate impacts. And here, a sustainable future requires a blend, a mix kind of legal action, policy innovation, technological solutions, and also the grassroots community participation, that is to address the environmental challenges effectively. Then here we can see the industrial pollution and urbanization pressure, and how it is a kind of challenge to the process of environmental governance in India. So here we can see that industrial pollution and urbanization pressures are posing significant environmental challenges, and specifically in those countries where the main focus is given to the economic development. And that is specifically in what kind of countries? In developing countries, in developing economies. And here we can see that, and it is like manifested in form of overcrowding, population explosion, which is derived from urbanization, intensifies environmental degradation through deforestation, unsustainable waste management, and here the urban heat island effects too. So here we can see that industrial activities releases the harmful pollutants into the air, water, soil, with severe consequences for the public health and ecosystem too. And here we can see, which is very important to know, that factories emit toxic gases like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides, which is contributing to urban smog and respiratory illness, as seen in Delhi's chronic air quality crisis. And here the emission of particulate matter, that is in form of PM 2.5 and then PM 10, sulfur dioxide, SO2, and nitrogen oxides, that is NOx, from factories and power plants. And here specifically, for example, we can see Delhi's NCR smog crisis has also been measured during this phase. And in this regard, we can also quote or see the 1984 Bhopal gas tragedy, which remains a stark reminder of industrial negligence, where a chemical leak which killed thousands of people and also exposed the systematic safety failures which are adopted in the industrial setup. So here we can see that the Bhopal gas tragedy, that is of the night of December 2nd and 3rd, 1984, was a catastrophic industrial disaster in India. And here a deadly gas leak of methyl isocyanate, that is MIC, from Union Carbide pesticides plant engulfed Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, and over 15,000 people died immediately, and around 50,000 plus suffered from severe injuries, with many facing lifelong disabilities, respiratory diseases, and even the birth effects for the future generation, in the future generation. And here we can see that poor safety protocols, neglected maintenance, and lack of emergency preparedness has also worsened the impact of it. And here survivors continue to struggle with their health, legal, and environmental consequences, as toxic waste remains unclaimed. And here the disaster also exposed the corporate negligence and weak industrial regulations, prompting global debates on industrial safety and justice. So it was a very kind of like disappointing case in this regard. If we discuss into the challenges and the issues faced due to this incidents, then there are various points which should be considered and rather be critically thought of, such as delayed and inadequate compensation. Here the survivors are still struggling for years despite of all the struggles and suffering. The settlement amount between the Union Carbide and the government of India was widely seen as insufficient, and further the victims received low compensation payouts, which was far below the actual medical cost, and thousands of official victims were were denied of compensation. Then medical and health crisis, and here many generations later also the survivors suffers from respiratory diseases, cancer, neurological disorders and birth defects because of the lack of proper health care and subsequent regular checkup. Also, the Union Carbide refused to disclose the exact gas composition, which hindered the effective treatment. Then, environmental contamination, and here the abandoned factory site still contains thousands of tons of hazardous chemicals like mercury, lead, etc., which is polluting the groundwater. This toxic seepage is also contaminating water supplies, causing second generation. This also shows the failed cleanup as despite promises. Neither Union Carbide nor Dow Chemical Company, which acquired the UCC later on, took its responsibility. Then, after we can see the legal and corporate accountability failures, and here the Union Carbide CEO Warren Anderson was arrested but never faced trial and escaped by fleeing to the US. The Indian courts convicted seven UCIL employees in 2010, but they got only 2 year sentences and minor fines. And lastly, we can see the ongoing activism and unmet demands. And here, some NGOs like Bhopal Group for Information and Action, that is BGIA, are still fighting for justice for the poorer medical care for victims, environmental cleanup of the site, and higher compensation and corporate accountability. But these incidences like this is not limited, but there are several other cases also which are severely impacting the environment. And here we can see that the untreated industrial effluents discharged into the rivers, such as we can see that is in Yamuna, untreated wastewater from the industries. And for example, we can see tyrannies in Kanpur. Pollution by textile dyes and heavy metal are also devastating the aquatic life and contaminating the water resources. So, improper disposal of toxic chemicals and heavy metals are also polluting the soil and causing severe health risk. For example, industrial waste in Rajasthan has led to fluorosis. Which is damaging the bones and teeth of human beings. Meanwhile, the Indian cities generate 62 million tons of solid waste annually. That is according to the Central Pollution Control Board of 2023. But inadequate recycling are also worsening the landfill overflows and groundwater pollution. And here, unsegregated waste releases methane and other contaminated, other gases which are contaminating the soil and water. And here we can see that urgent action, stricter waste management policies, industrial regulation, along with the public awareness is needed to curb this growing environmental and health hazard. Now we will be coming to the urbanization and how it is creating a kind of pressure on the environmental sustainability. So here we can see that rapid unplanned urbanization is intensifying the environmental crises across the Indian cities. And here the unchecked expansion destroys natural water systems. And here, like we can take the example, like Bangalore has lost 79% of its lakes since 1973, triggering severe water scarcity as groundwater levels plummet. And similarly, in Mumbai and Chennai have become concrete heat islands with temperature rise due to deforestation for the infrastructural development and projects. And here we can see that urban sprawl also heightens flood risk. In this regard, Chennai's 2015 floods worsened by the wetland encroachments showcased how natural drainage systems are being obliterated. And meanwhile, improper waste disposal contaminates soil and water. In Moradabad, a hub for e-waste recycling faces heavy metal pollution from the unscientific processing, while Delhi's Ghazipur landfill fires and Bangalore Belandur Lake toxic fourth highlight the dangers of unregulated construction and inadequate waste management. So here, through these examples, which are underscored the urgent need for sustainable urban planning, reviving water bodies, enforcing stricter waste disposal laws, and also integrating the green spaces to mitigate heat and floods. And here, without systematic reforms, India's cities will face escalating ecological and public health disasters. Now here we can see the important portion, that is of the judicial interventions. And here we can see, and as we have discussed in the previous lectures too, that Supreme Court rulings on industrial emission and the NGT orders, that is the National Green Tribunals on waste management, has also highlighted the role of legal framework in mitigating these environmental pressures. But here we can see that sustainable solutions require a stricter enforcement of environmental regulations. Along with that, the adaptation of cleaner technologies, and also the urban planning, which will prioritize the ecological balance along with the development. And here, without urgent action, the dual burdens of industrial pollution and the hazard urbanization will continue to endanger both environmental and human health issues. Now here we have come up with the most important portion of it, that is the waste management and resource conservation, which is very important in ensuring the environmental sustainability. So here we can see that rapid urbanization and industrialization have triggered a massive waste management challenge in India. And here the country generates 62 million tons of municipal solid waste annually, but only 75% is collected and a measure of 22% is processed properly. The rest end up in overflowing landfills like Delhi's Ghazipur and Mumbai's Deonar, which emit toxic methane and pollute groundwater through the leachate seepage. Here in the e-waste, here we can see that 3.2 million tons every year, and plastic waste, that is 3.5 million tons every year, further compound the crisis with improper disposal contaminating soil and water. And for instance, here we can see that Muradabad's e-waste recycling releases heavy metals while plastic clogs drains and rivers, worsening floods. So here, without urgent improvement in waste segregation, recycling infrastructure, and stricter enforcement of disposable laws, India's waste problem will escalate and further will threaten the public health and ecosystem too. So here we can see that India's waste crisis is worsened by the poor segregation of the waste and also reliance on an informal recycling sector, that is of the 90% of recycling, where workers face unsafe conditions and low wages. And despite the policies like the solid waste management rules of 2016, then the EPR, that is the extended producer responsibility, weak enforcement, and inadequate infrastructure limits. So here, to combat these issues, sustainable models are emerging. In this regard, we can take up the circular economy approach, which promotes waste management and recycling, while waste to energy plants, for example, in Delhi, Okhla's facility, and AI driven tracking systems, which are improving the efficiency of it. So decentralized efforts like Bengaluru's daily dump compositing and Pune's biomethanation plants show how localized solutions can reduce the landfill burdens. Now here we will be coming up to the judicial interventions in this regard. So here India's judiciary has strengthened the environmental governance through different rulings like the NGT's single-use plastic ban and Almrita Patel versus Union of India, which mandated the better waste management, and concurrently cities are adopting sustainable practices. Here Chennai's rainwater harvesting revives the groundwater of Chennai. In Tamil Nadu's zero liquid discharge policy cuts the industrial pollution, and in Indore, bio CNG buses have also reduced the emissions. So these efforts blending legal enforcement with grassroots innovation and also showcasing India's shift towards integrated urban sustainability. Now we have come up to the last portion, that is the environmental awareness and behavior change campaigns. And here we can see that India has launched impactful sustainability programs to address environmental challenges like the Swachh Bharat mission of 2014, which revolutionized the waste management and sanitation through nationwide awareness campaigns, celebrity involvement, and also the school education programs, which significantly improved the urban cleanliness. Complementing this, the Life Mission of 2020 also promoted the eco-conscious living by encouraging energy conservation, sustainable consumption, and reduction of single-use plastics. So these initiatives demonstrate India's commitment to combining policy action with public participation for environmental protection. Then here we can see the India has also been impactful sustainability campaigns which are driven by the corporations and NGOs like the Give It Up initiative, which encouraged economically privileged citizens to voluntarily surrender their LPG subsidies, redirecting resources to underprivileged households and promoting equitable energy access. And meanwhile, the Beat Plastic Pollution campaign by the UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Program, have also mobilized businesses, corporates, and the consumers too to reduce single-use plastic through bans, awareness drives, and also the eco-friendly initiatives. Despite growing scientific evidence on climate change, many individuals and businesses remain unaware of their environmental impact, like that is in form of misinformation, lack of education, and short-term economic priorities, which often hinders these sustainable actions. And here we can see that awareness campaigns address these gaps by educating the people for the issues of like plastic pollution, deforestation, carbon footprints. Then after we can see the motivating element, which actually very important in behavioral shifts through the relatable messaging like save water, save life campaign. And thirdly, which is very very important, that is about empowering the citizens with the actionable steps like the waste segregation, which is very very important, and then after the energy conservation. Now here we will be seeing the important successful campaign strategies for environment awareness, and here we will be seeing the four important initiatives too. Firstly, we will be discussing the government led initiatives, and here firstly we will be seeing the Swachh Bharat mission, which was, here we can see that India has launched impactful sustainability programs to address environmental challenges. The Swachh Bharat Mission 2014, which has revolutionized the waste management and sanitation through nationwide awareness campaigns, celebrity involvement, and school education programs, which significantly improved the urban cleanliness. And here, complementing this, there was also a life mission that was of 2022, which promoted the eco-conscious living by encouraging energy conservation, sustainable consumption, and reduction of single-use plastics. And here, these initiatives demonstrate India's commitment to combining policy action with public participation for environmental protection. Then here we can see the corporate and NGO campaigns, and here we can see again that India has been impactful sustainability campaigns which were driven by the corporations and NGOs. And in this regard, the Give It Up initiative, which encouraged economically privileged citizens to voluntarily surrender their LPG subsidies, redirecting resources to underprivileged households, and the promoting equitable energy access. Meanwhile, the Beat Plastic Pollution campaign by the UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Program, has also mobilized corporate and consumers too to reduce the single-use plastics through the bans, awareness drives, and eco-friendly alternatives. So these campaigns highlights the power of collective action in driving the behavioral change and fostering sustainable practices. In this regard, we can also see the grassroots and digital movements like the Fridays for Future. And here, India's climate activism has been inspired by the Fridays for Future campaign, where youth leverage social media to organize strikes and also demands policy action. In between, we can see that plastic attack challenges see consumers publicly expose excessive packaging by leaving plastic waste as at the supermarkets, pressurizing retailers to adopt sustainable alternatives. And here, these digital native movements demonstrate how online platforms can also amplify environmental awareness and drive real world change through collective action and public accountability. Subtle psychological interventions are also proving effective in promoting eco-friendly habits like the default choices. In this regard, automatic enrollment in paperless billing significantly reduce paper waste by leveraging inertia. Meanwhile, the social norming displaying comparative energy uses data among the neighbors creates positive peer pressure for the conservation. So these low cost behavioral nudges rooted in decision science drive meaningful environmental action by aligning sustainability with the convenience and social influence. So here we can see that these environmental campaigns effectively raise the public awareness, sustaining behavioral changes, and also demanding the ongoing efforts. And some of the tools like carbon trackers for progress monitoring, strong policy reinforcement, and reason specific messaging are crucial to address these diverse local and global environmental challenges. And here we can see that combining the public awareness with structural support may ensure the eco-conscious practices which will become ingrained in the daily life. And here we can see that persistent tailored engagement can help India to translate short-term activism into enduring environmental stewardship. So after discussing all the important components of today's lecture, here we can conclude it as like that India faces mounting environmental pressures from climate change impacts, industrial pollution, rapid urbanization, and pressure to inefficient waste management, demanding urgent action. And here, while adaptation measures like resilient agriculture and renewable energy show promise, unchecked industrialization and urban sprawl threaten natural resources. So, waste management remains critical with growing landfill crises and plastic pollution undermining the ecosystem. And in this context, awareness campaigns and behavioral nudges drive public engagement, but lasting change requires strong policy enforcement, technological innovation, and community participation too. So the path forward hinges on collective responsibility and systematic transformation. So these are the activity question. Whatever I have discussed in the today's lecture, these all can be attempted after listening that lecture. These are the references which you all may use as further reading. Thank you.